What do you think is more important, the value of an old piece of furniture or the stories behind them?
Story behind it.
Do you remember the antique boom in the late 1980s?
Yes, I do. I mean, back then people was paying through the nose for some of those antiques.
What kind of excitement were you seeing? Like, what were they asking you to repair?
I did repair tables. Uh, and like I said years ago, one of the most unusual I ever did. A lady brought me a little medicine cabinet that hung on the wall in the bathroom back in the day.
I remember those.
Yeah, and it had about 30 coats of paint. And I told her what it would cost. Oh, that's just way too much. Then I explained what had to be done if she wanted it done. And she said, okay. So I finally got all the paint off, got it back together, new glass in it. She loved it. But that was the smallest and the most expensive piece I've ever done. But it was her family's. She wanted it. It wasn't like she bought it off the shelf somewhere.
And that kind of transitions us to the next piece because a lot of antiques have been passed down. Have you seen like dining room sets passed down many generations ago? Like that was a big deal.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Depending on the upper class money, it was handed down like antiques, in which they really were. Now, in our section of the world, working and where we came from, you'd hand down pots like this, which was actually, I mean, something like that back in the day was a gold mine. I mean, skillets, Mama's old bread bowl, made out of cypress. And I had stored it in the shed, and the dadgum boring worms got in it and ate it up.
Oh no!
So I had to poison it heavy to kill them. It's no longer any good, but I still got it put up. Okay. You can go watch Pawn Shop on TV, big house and all of them. Somebody would come in there with a little old piece of rusty steel or a little item, and it's nothing until they find out behind it belonged to whoever. And all of a sudden, the value just went through the ceiling.
So the story.
Yeah, musical instruments. Woo, yeah, from $400 or $500 up into the hundreds of thousands.
Depends on who they belong to.
The story behind it.
Yeah.
People want the story.
And you know, we're moving to a new house. Preston found this article, if you want to take it, from 1988, January 6, 1988. If you look on the very front, it talks about this man, Mr. Sack, and he's a huge antique guy, and he's charting the rise of American antiques in the late 1980s. Do you think he was correct? Was there a big rise in the 1980s?
It was. It's almost like a fad. Like gold goes up and down this week, silver goes up next week, precious metals goes up the week after. It's a cycle. Something like that hit the paper, and everybody says, "Oh, look, that's an investment," and he'll go for it. But antiques, not all of them are equal. Not all of them holds their price. If you go back, Antique Roadshow, filmed in England, America, all over the world, and look at the prices they were getting back in the 80s and 90s, and look at the prices they're getting now. You know, most of it went down. Now, some of it went up. Depends on what it was.
So Mr. Sachs said, right after remember the stock crash in '83?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
This particular article says that Mr. Sack paid $687,000 for a desk in 1983. And that was not long after the stock market crashed. So he still believed in the value of antiques. Well, you agree with this? Antique alone does not always mean valuable.
Well, he's rated as a professional. I was rated as an amateur because I didn't get into it that deep. But if a $600,000 desk back then, did it belong to George Washington or his mama, Thomas Jefferson? If it didn't, if it belonged to me and you, it's done lost value.
I agree. Young people aren't necessarily rejecting old things anymore. They're just changing which old things they want.
Well, majority of them, instead of doing whole households of antique, they'll find something like a nice cast iron pot or
vanity.
Yeah, something unusual, and they'll use it as a little centerpiece for a certain theme, and that's it. So I mean, yeah, certain things if you regained it, like antique cast iron. price on some of that stuff will scare you. I mean, it's going up every day. People are getting back into it. And it went down, now it's coming back up. I'm going to go back to the 50s, late 40s, early 50s to start. Back then, on the farm, nothing went to waste. When you used the tool, you cleaned it and you put it up. If he found rust on his tools, you was in serious trouble. All right. Now, that got me, when I moved into Louisiana, we no longer was farming or sharecropping. People would throw away old shovels, they'd throw away old hammers, they'd throw away tools. Back home, we'd consider that gold mine. So I would take them, clean them up, and next thing I know, the neighbors would buy it or I'd give it away.
So how did you get into restoring antiques?
All right. At first, it was real amateurish, trying to patch it. But then as it started, we didn't have AI and Google and all that. I'd go to the library and get books and study it. They taught me how to clean, sand, work with it. Then,
How about working with Pawpaw?
oh yeah, working with Papa. He was a first-class carpenter. He'd build cabinets or anything. So I learned about stains and all this. And then Hollis Hood. I hadn't seen or heard from him in 50-something years. He was an ironworker. And my father-in-law brought me an old buffet. 3-tiered buffet with a big mirror in terrible shape. Pieces, literally pieces. Well, I didn't know Hollis had worked for the state and refinished the state furniture for years before he became an ironworker. And on the job site, I was telling him about that buffet. Oh, he said, you can make that back into a beautiful piece. And I said, I don't know how to proceed. So under Hollis's tutoring, for about 4 months, we replaced the veneer, hand carved the pieces that was missing out of big oak, took oak planks off the job site, 2 and 3 inches thick, washed the mud off of them, sanded them down, and made the parts that was missing on the buffet. And stained it. Redid the mirror. Come out beautiful. And that got me started.
So if someone is restoring an antique, could they actually ruin it or ruin whatever made it the antique?
Oh my God, yes. Some antiques might be, say, worth $1 million. Refinish it, it's worth maybe $5,000-6,000.
What might they do wrong?
Oh, well, they take off the original finish. It just takes away from it. And a lot of people want it as near original as humanly possible.
If someone put 16 coats of shellac on an antique desk, what would you say?
Good luck. Shellac is one thing, paint is something else. Shellac, if you put it on there and sand it down, wet sand, and keep working with it, if you want an extremely smooth and gloss finish, that's good.
What are some antique pieces today would you tell someone not to throw away?
Oh, your cast iron, look, anything. You go back.
Tools?
Tools, oh my God, Craftsman, the original Craftsman that was made in the USA, not in China. I got a Craftsman over there, it's got an original box, about the yay square, and about that thick. It's a little ratchet set they belong to your grandma. And I got to looking, and it's original USA. Now, each one of those little wrenches could be worth as much as $500. They're little bitty things. It depends on who wants it to fill out their collection. Antique tools, you name it, photos. Now, one of the big things nowadays is they'll go looking for antique photos with no name on them, no nothing, just the photo. And they'll go online and they'll start digging. I found this photo in East Texas. Judging from the clothing, it was 1850. Judging from the furniture, it's so, and they try to find out, it's like playing detective. And it's amazing how many people they trace back to the original owners.
That is crazy. I didn't know they actually trace them back.
Oh my gosh, it's getting to be a hobby.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No. The owners, well, yeah, antique Bibles.
Ooh.
The old Bibles, the family Bibles, they unbelievable valuable. They got more in those Bibles than they got in the state archives. Way more.
You mean like genealogy?
Genealogy, the names, the dates, the death dates, marriage dates, etc. And if you look up and find one that matches your family, you just found a gold mine. I've been hunting for years, hadn't found mine.
You haven't done very much about your family at all.
No,
I don't think they want to be found.
no. I think they were Blackbeard's relatives.
And I just want to tell you that Preston said Sammy will enjoy this when he picked it up. I think he said something about you being an antique.
Yeah. 85. But look,
85 in December. And that
seriously,
one that you made for that lady, the story behind that medicine cabinet for her that had to make her feel so good.
I felt guilty, but I told her, I said, it's going to take weeks to get all this paint off and get it back. And she said, well, I want it. I said, well, okay.
What'd you say today? What I want and what I got are two different things.
Yeah, what you got and what you want is totally two different things. One lady, and I turned that job down, I really did. It just got back from Italy. She brought a table that was seated like 20 with the chairs. And each chair was an angel with his wings folded back to the back of the chair.
Oh my goodness.
The master chairs on each end, you can't describe them. And she wanted me to refinish it. I said, no, ma'am, that would take me 10 years because all the little hooks and cavities that would have had to been cleaned out. You'd have had to put it back original, real
Pawpaw
careful.
Sammy and Alley-Bug.
Thank y'all. Look, don't forget to put like and subscribe.
Oh yeah.
It takes time to build these videos. I need to get them up. I need them higher. I need encouragement.
Okay.